welcome back to the Rewired Parent, all of my Spark Squad out there. And I want to be honest with you, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How many times this week have you pulled this one out of your back pocket? Your child asks, why? You're tired, you're out of patience, and you just dropped the bomb. Because I said so. Let me tell you, growing up, my parents did the best they could with what they knew and what they had, raising, at that time, 3 rambunctious boys. So I heard that a lot. And when you think about it, it feels final, doesn't it? It feels powerful. It's like that trump card of parenting. If I say, because I said so, then that should settle it once and for all. And we all do it. I've done it. And like I said, my parents did it to us growing up. I'm sure your parents probably said the same thing because it's the cornerstone of conventional parenting. And I'm here to tell you today that even though it's so common and it's so powerful to us maybe to say, it's one of the most damaging phrases you can use with any neurodivergent child or student. Why? Because it's a relationship killer. And what I'm doing is I'm saying it's time to retire that phrase forever. So this might be an uncomfortable conversation. It's going to be. Not might be. It probably is. But as you know, if you listen to any of the episodes, this is not about easy answers. It's about effective ones. It's about the research and the evidence and the neuroscience and the practice. So why is this seemingly innocent phrase, because I said so, so destructive? Because it's not about what you're saying, it's about what your child is hearing. Let me say that again. It's not so much about what you're saying, it's about what your child is hearing. And for a neurodivergent brain, because I said so, can be translated into 3 very dangerous messages. And before I start, I know as I share these, you might think, but that's not what I mean. Okay, I get that. It's not what we mean. And I'm not diminishing the parents' authority and their responsibility in raising our kids. And I'm not telling you that we're just abdicating everything. Remember, we talk about authoritarian versus permissive parenting, and right in the middle there, that balance is that authoritative parenting. So you may say, that's not what I meant to say, or God forbid we say things like, well, that's their problem for taking it that way. Oh, it bugs me. So let me tell you what they are probably hearing. Message number 1, your why doesn't matter. So you got to understand, neurodivergent kids are driven by a deep, intense need to understand their world and to process it. And processing for them is challenging. So often their why isn't challenging your authority at all. It's a desperate attempt really to make sense of a world that often feels confusing and arbitrary. In fact, I had a student today just tell me when he didn't know the right answer, wasn't sure if his answer was going to be right with me. He just said, I'm confused. And that's how they feel about a lot of things at home and at school and out in the community. And they need to make sense of the pattern, the system that, again, is so foreign to them. So when we say, because I said so, you're telling them your need to understand what's going on is irrelevant, and my authority is the only thing that matters. Now, what does that do? It's going to shut down their curiosity, which is one of the key elements of really raising thriving, resilient, connected kids, is that sense of curiosity. And so we teach them that asking questions is annoying, not admirable. And I've seen this take place at home. I've seen this take place in the classroom. I've seen classrooms where kids are no longer wanting to take risks and raise their hand and give out answers because through other conversations and messages, their curiosity is just crushed. And when we say, because I said so, when they say, but why? So over time, what will happen is they'll stop asking, and the child who stops asking why is a child who not only stops learning, but is going to be prone to just blind obedience and following whatever any person says, and that is extremely, extremely dangerous. Now, again, I told you at home, I know this. I have my kids, especially one of my sons who's now an adult, but it was always why. And at first, it just drove us bonkers. Everything is why. And so I saw it as both a power struggle and an annoyance. You're just asking why because you don't want to do it. You want to just, get into this tug of war, and I'm not going for it. I'm not falling for it. And as I began to understand my kids more, and then going to school and getting my doctorate, I realized that this often is not questioning authority. It could be, but a lot of times I was able to tease it out a little bit and know that he was just trying to understand the hidden rules of the world, and also trying to gain a sense of autonomy. And that's a huge one, especially with our neurodivergent kids, because as adults we do our best to try to keep them safe, and we try to make sure everything is okay and that they're not receiving any kind of harm. But what we can do then is we can strip them totally of their autonomy, and again, that's a dangerous thing. But also, please understand this, their why may be simply a mechanism to feel safe and secure, because there's this inner sense of like, I know the reasons for things are out of love and care and not just arbitrary. So even if it's the simplest thing, why, or I told you that already 1,000 times, see it not as annoyance but as attachment. And their brains need the data, and when you start giving an appropriate why, things like, why do I have to wear these shoes? Because these shoes, or why do I have to wear socks? Because these shoes will give you blisters without socks. I'm always going to agree, and it doesn't mean the infinite regression of why. And sometimes, again, it's going to be pushback, and my kids have liked to argue. But again, it's a safety mechanism, isn't it? If I argue with you and you show that it's safe to have these discussions, then we begin to see their nervous system going into that safe zone. Okay? So all I want to do is communicate that you matter to me. A second message is, we're saying the situation is not safe. Why? Because I said so. So our neurodivergent kids with trauma and anxiety, and I will tell you that even though the DSM-5 may not put it this way, and I'm very careful because I don't want to give out false information, but I will tell you that most neurodivergent kids we're finding out now have some form of trauma. Trauma and neurodivergence are very closely linked. And so they're living with this in a world that already feels unpredictable. And oh my God, this every day, I just can't look at the news very much because it just drives my neurodivergent brain into this, places that are not healthy. So their nervous system is constantly scanning for cues of safety and danger. And so sometimes if we give a clear logical reason, even if it's one they don't like or agree with, it's a safety cue. And it says, okay, at least the world might make sense. There's a predictable reason for this. I may not like it, but that's what it is. So there's a difference. When I say, because I said so, that's a danger cue. It says the rules are arbitrary. They can change based on the whim of the person in power. Wow. I won't even go there right now. It removes logic and basically replaces it with pure power. And that's a very dangerous thing. So for a child whose brain is desperate for safety, predictability, this is absolutely frightening and terrifying. And we may not see it that way as adults, but it may make sense if you step back and think about it. And then when they don't feel safe and they feel a sense of terror, that's the fight or flight response, which is why this phrase so often escalates a conflict instead of ending it, right? Because I said so. Well, that's going to escalate the conflict. And the third message that can be heard is we're not on the same team. And this is probably one of the most damaging messages of all, because parenting is not about compliance. It's about connection. Connection over correction, right? Doesn't mean we can't correct, but correction and discipline need to be in the context of asking the question, is this going to build a stronger relationship, a connection between my child and myself? Because it's about trust and respect. And when you build a relationship of trust and respect that's strong, it will weather any storm. So because I said so, as you saw on my Substack yesterday post, I had that picture of drawing the line in the sand. Okay, I'm the powerful one, you're the powerless one. And it turns a collaboration opportunity into an authoritarian dictatorship. And it fundamentally says, we're not on the same team. My goal is compliance, not connection. Now, I know some of you right now are really struggling with this, and you think I've gone soft. But let me tell you, again, this isn't just my opinion. This is what brain science has been telling us really over the last 30 years. But we have grown up, I have grown up, many of you, have grown up in systems where, kids are to be seen, not heard. The parent is the absolute authority, but that has bled into a lot of other areas of my life, and it has led to lots of misuse and abuse of power by others and created trauma. So I'm just telling you, if that's the road you're going to reap children who are going to struggle with that for the rest of their lives and probably perpetuate it. And it's just not healthy for the individual. It's not healthy for families or schools or communities or nations. So every time we use this phrase, because I said so, what you're doing is depositing a tiny grain of evidence into your child's mind that we are not on their side. We're not their ally. We're their warden. And over the years, I'll tell you, those grains build a wall between us. And again, unless we are humble and vulnerable and saying, hey, I have a part in it, we'll just try to blame someone else, which again is not healthy. So what do we do instead? I think it's simple. I didn't say it's easy. Give a reason. Give a simple, honest, boundary-based reason. So instead of because I said so, try this. We're leaving the park now because it's my job to make sure we get home in time for dinner. That's okay. It's not because why do we have to go home now? We're having so much fun because I said so. No, we're leaving now because it's my job to take care of you and make sure that we are able to get it home in time for dinner. So it's a boundary that's based on your responsibility as a parent. Or you need to turn off the video game now because our family rule is that screens go off at 7. Now, if you don't have that family rule should be worked through in a collaborative sense. Again, you're a parent, so you're guiding the process. You're the adult, you have the experience, but I have found that the more our kids can collaborate in rules, which is a lot of what I do as a teacher, and allowing the students to help form the classroom norms or expectations or culture. And it's amazing when I started doing that, especially as a high school teacher, I thought, oh, they're going to come up with things like no homework or not, but they didn't. They always came. They know what makes them feel safe. They know what is the right way that we should conduct ourselves as decent human beings in a learning environment. No more cookies. Why? Okay, because you're building these habits. It's important for our bodies to have a mix of healthy foods and treats. Now, again, it's not going to be the one and done, and you're not going to over-explain it. They don't need a 1-hour college level lecture on healthy foods and nutrition. And you're not negotiating, you're just holding the boundary, but you're also honoring their need for the why. And you're replacing this arbitrary power with respectful leadership. You're living out what I've been talking about on my Substack posts and in blogs and even on social media. It's that Bob Ross meets Chef Gordon Ramsay parenting model. You're firm with expectations, you're firm with boundaries, but you're also not lording it over, and you're showing that same kind of compassion and empathy and connection and understanding they need. So I will agree, this is a radical shift that takes a lot of practice, and you're going to want to give up on it after probably the 5th time. Why? But it's worth the work, because every time you replace "because I said so" with a simple, honest reason, you are sending a completely new set of messages. You're saying your why matters. Our world can be a safe place, and we're on the same team. And you're rewiring your relationship one conversation at a time. And so this is the kind of work I want to do. I want to challenge the advice that's been failing families, and I want to break the rules so that we can build authentic connection. And so if you're ready to be part of this revolution, which you probably are because you're listening to this podcast, continue to engage with our community on Substack. I'd love to hear your ideas, your comments. So you can do that either on Substack, or you can do it through email at david@drdavidapalmer.com, or you can send me a text message at 209-800-4637, or you can DM me on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn at Dr. David A. Palmer. Hashtag Spark Squad. Be a part of this revolution, and share this episode, and let's get the conversation going. Let's get it out there. And on that note, I just want to say this. I'm super excited to be able to mention, and some of you have seen it on my social media, that I'm speaking at TEDx Fullerton on October 5th. You can go to tedxfullerton.com, find out some more about it. And my talk is specifically about how we as adults can become the calm instead of the storm, especially when we're faced with kids that are asking us all the time, why? So, friends, keep rewiring, and let's put a stop to putting out those fires, and let's better understand the spark. Until next time,